The Healer by the Sea, a bedtime story inspired by Gospel of Matthew, chapter 8. The stars above Capernaum blinked into the night one by one, like tiny lanterns lighting the sky. The sea below whispered against the shore, soft and soothing, as if even the waves knew it was time to rest. But in the stillness of the night, a quiet wonder was beginning to stir. Not far from the water's edge, in a small house with a flickering lamp in the window, Jesus was resting after a day full of kindness and miracles. His heart was peaceful, full of love for every soul he had touched. The moonlight painted silver shadows across the floor where he sat, his eyes soft, his hands still. Earlier that morning, the town had been busy. Dust danced in the sunbeams, and children's laughter echoed through the olive trees. But then a hush fell as a man slowly approached. His robe was torn, and his face was hidden beneath a hood. He moved carefully, avoiding the crowd, for he was a leper, a man with a disease that made everyone fear him and left him alone, always alone, but not Jesus. The man knelt before him and whispered, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus did not step back. Instead, he stepped forward. He looked into the man's eyes, and with a hand full of peace, he reached out and touched him. "I am willing," Jesus said softly. "Be clean." And just like that, the man's pain, his sorrow, his isolation, all melted away like mist at sunrise. His skin became new, his heart soared, and tears of joy streamed down his cheeks. "Go," Jesus said gently, "and show yourself to the priest, but tell no one." The man nodded, his soul overflowing, and walked into the dawn a free and healed man. As the sun climbed higher, a Roman centurion came riding from the edge of town. His armor gleamed, but his face was lined with worry. He dismounted and came before Jesus, not with pride, but with humble hope. "Lord," he said, "my servant is lying at home, paralyzed and suffering terribly." Jesus nodded, "I will come and heal him." But the centurion shook his head gently. "I do not deserve to have you under my roof. Just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I, too, am a man under authority. If I say go, my soldiers go." Jesus looked at him with joy and surprise. "Truly, I have not found such faith in all of Israel," he said. Then, with a voice that seemed to echo beyond time, he declared, "Go. It will be done just as you believed it would." And at that very hour, in a quiet home far away, the centurion's servant opened his eyes, whole again. The sun began to fall, and the sky turned soft like rose petals. Jesus walked to Peter's house, where Peter's mother-in-law lay with a fever. She was pale, her breath shallow. Jesus touched her hand, and the fever left. She opened her eyes, smiled, and rose to serve them. A warm meal, fresh bread, and peace that filled the room like gentle music. As evening settled, the town came alive again. People gathered, bringing loved ones who were sick or troubled. Some could barely walk. Others whispered of shadows they could not see. Jesus stood among them with patience, kindness, and divine calm. One by one, he healed them. He lifted burdens no one else could see. The stars above watched in silence as peace flowed through the streets like a river of light. Later, when the people had gone and the night air cooled, Jesus said to his disciples, "Let us go to the other side of the lake." They climbed into a boat, and the sea wrapped around them like a quiet dream. Jesus found a cushion, lay down, and closed his eyes. Sleep embraced him, but then clouds gathered, the stars disappeared, the wind stirred the sea, and waves rose high. Rain fell in silver streaks, and the boat rocked fiercely. The disciples, seasoned fishermen, were afraid. "Lord, save us," they cried. "We're going to drown." Jesus opened his eyes. His gaze was calm, his presence still. He stood, the wind tugging at his robe, and looked at the storm. "You of little faith," he said gently, "why are you afraid?" Then he stretched out his hand and spoke, not loudly, but with authority that even the skies obeyed. "Peace, be still." And just like that, the wind quieted. The sea became calm, like glass under the moonlight. The disciples stared in awe. "Who is this man?" they whispered. "Even the winds and the waves obey him." They sailed on through the silver silence. When morning came, they reached the shore on the other side, a rocky land where caves lined the cliffs. From among them came two men, wild and troubled, living among tombs. Their eyes were fierce, their hearts tormented by darkness no one could see. They ran toward Jesus, shouting, but Jesus, unmoved, simply said, "Go." And with that word, the darkness left them. The men fell silent. Their hearts, once in turmoil, were now calm. Peace, for the first time in years, settled upon them like a gentle snowfall. They sat by the rocks, clothed and whole, watching the waves. The people of the region came running, but instead of joy, fear filled them. They didn't understand the power before them, and so they asked Jesus to leave. Jesus nodded. He did not argue. He simply turned to go. But the healed men followed. "Let us come with you," they pleaded. Jesus smiled. "Return home," he said. "Tell them all that God has done for you." And so, as Jesus stepped back into the boat and sailed away, the men stood by the shore, their hearts glowing with a quiet joy, ready to begin again. As the story fades, now, my dear one, let your thoughts drift like that gentle boat on the calm sea. Let your heart rest in the arms of the one who heals, who speaks peace into storms, who touches the hurting and brings light to the dark. May you fall asleep, knowing that the same Jesus who calmed the sea walks beside you, watches over you, and speaks peace into your soul tonight. Good night, and may his peace guard your dreams.